twice a day, right? Well, tune in to Beat the Book with us, Dylan Cohen and Keon Rose, every weekday from 2 to 3 on 1580 The Fanatic. Brought to you by Sport Trade, the newest sports book in Arizona.
Why choose a Sleep Number smart bed?
Can I make my side softer?
Can I make my side firmer?
Can we sleep cooler?
Sleep Number does that. Cools up to 8 times faster and lets you choose your ideal comfort on either side, your Sleep Number setting. And now it's our lowest price of the season on our top-selling i8 smart bed. Your best savings, plus free home delivery with any base. Exclusively at a Sleep Number store near you. All Sleep Number smart beds offer temperature solutions for your best sleep. Learn more at sleepnumber.com.
My name is Mary Grace. There are a few misconceptions about Alzheimer's. It's not just memory loss. It's the loss of mobility, the risk of falling.
For more information, contact the Alzheimer's Association at alz.org, sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association.
Will Shakespeare here. Back in my day, I invented over 1,700 slang words like swagger, bedazzled, and my personal favorite, besmirch. But even I have trouble understanding slang words like yeet or bougie or
this is fire.
Actually, it is extremely smooth Shakespeare vodka.
Okay, boomer.
See what I mean? But there is one word that describes the pure quadruple distilled spirit crafted from an 8th century Polish recipe the first time you try it.
So lit.
I couldn't have said it better myself. Shakespeare vodka. So lit.
Snakes, zombies, public speaking. The list of fears is endless. But the real danger is in your hand when you're behind the wheel. Distracted driving is what's really scary and even deadly. Eyes forward. Don't drive distracted. Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
KQFN Tempe. Also transmitting on K257CD Phoenix at 99.3 FM and K240 EU Mountain Hills at 95.9 FM. Wherever you go, take us along. Listen to our live stream on our free Fanatic app. Download it today.
And welcome back to a Thursday edition of Beat the Book. I'm Keon Rose. Alongside me is our betting expert in the building, Dylan Cohen. We're broadcasting live from the Harmon Solar Studios in sunny uptown Scottsdale. We are 1580 The Fanatic, and today on the show, we got a lot of basketball to talk about. Suns and the Wizards. I don't even want to say do battle tonight because honestly, if the Suns don't flatten the Wizards, I'll be incredibly disappointed. We also have some early preview of the college football championship coming up as well. We've got the big game that is on the 20th on Monday. So we'll get to the national title game. We'll talk about GCU basketball tonight. Thunder versus Cavs. That's going to be the big pick for the day. We'll give you that as well. And of course, as we always do, segment number 3, we wrap up the show with some big game hunting. We're going to go with the long shot parlay. You're on the text line at 888-368-1580. But before we get to any and all of those things, Dylan, who powers the show?
That would be Sport Trade. And if you have not done so already, make sure you search Sport Trade on your smartphone, get that app downloaded, and use promo code 1580 to take advantage of their 10% cashback promotion on all the wagers that you place in your first week. And of course, do not miss out on Beat the Book tomorrow, because that is when Sport Trade CEO Alex Kane will be back on the show to roll out the next Sport Trade win probability contest, where you, the listener, have the ability to win a $100 Amazon gift card and $50 in cash sent directly to your Sport Trade account for you to play some extra wagers with. So do not miss out on that. Go ahead and get your Sport Trade account set up today, so that way you are all ready to go. If you happen to win, you'll be able to get that extra $50 that much easier. Now, as we were signing off on yesterday's show, there was some breaking news that was about our hometown Phoenix Suns, and it was something that was to be expected. It was, pretty heavily spoken about in the media. A lot of headlines going around. The Suns were shopping Yusuf Nurkic. He's fallen out of the rotation. He makes about 18, 19 million a season. That's a pretty hefty contract to have on the books for someone that is not playing. So obviously we are looking to try and, see what's available on the market, see what we can get back. And the Suns were able to strike a trade yesterday for a center. I guess the kind of shocker about it was that this trade does not involve Yusuf Nurkic. The Suns instead sent Josh Okogie as well as 3 future second-round picks to the Charlotte Hornets, and they got back their backup center, Nick Richards, as well as a 2025 second round pick. Now, this trade, right off the bat, Keon and I want to be able to give our thoughts to this. We didn't have the time to really be able to do that yesterday. So we're just going to, dive right in here. After that loss to the Hornets, earlier this week, I mean, very, very apparent that we could not continue with the current lineup that we had with essentially no true center. Mason Plumlee, does a serviceable job as a backup, but he's not a realistic option as your starting big man. So, we were trying to kind of play through it. Nurkic, obviously not the solution, but, we're getting out rebounded by teams like the Atlanta Hawks by 17 rebounds and their backup centers having a 20-20 game against us. And it ended up being, the wake-up call. And also another piece to this, too, was that Josh Okogie wasn't trade eligible literally until yesterday. So the second he became eligible, this deal got done. And, immediately, it's not going to be the cure-all for, all these different issues that the Suns have right now with the way that they've been underperforming, but it is a massive step in the right direction. And kudos to Matt Ishbia, to James Jones. Ever since Ishbia has, taken over the team, there is a sense that he is just extremely proactive about addressing the team's needs. And I think that in the decades of Robert Sarver's ownership, we just didn't move on these things with the same kind of urgency. And so I would say that's a really appealing dynamic of this. To not be able to get rid of Nurkic in this deal is unfortunate, but it also speaks to the difficulty in general that the Suns are going to have with getting him off the books. We're going to have to figure out another way to sell him, or, if a team just kind of finds themselves in the right scenario where they really are looking for that more kind of traditional center archetype of a player to join their team, a guy that, can go down low and he can hang with, Jokic or potentially Wemby, someone that maybe isn't as agile as like a Giannis Antetokounmpo, but someone that still requires you to counter them with, some big size. Unfortunately, and I spoke about this yesterday, just the way that the NBA has been moving and evolving and changing over the years, like the demand for a player like that is just slowly dying and dying and dying out. So you take a look at Charlotte. Charlotte's like, we don't want Nurkic. Get him out of this deal. No, I mean, we're not going to do business with you if Yusuf Nurkic is a part of this deal. So that is where the Suns had to pivot. They had to throw Josh Okogie in there. The contracts worked out. The Suns can't take more money back. They have to send more out than what they get back. Mm-hmm. So Josh Okogie, he makes about $8 million a season. Nick Richards makes about $5 million. Money worked out there. As far as the draft picks go, and I mentioned this to you before we went on, Keon, because I think this is something that not enough people are pointing out. For the Suns to trade 3 draft picks as a part of this deal and to take back only 1, it's a sign that, I mean, we are totally all chips in the middle. We are going all out, doing whatever we can to try and make this season work. It would be extremely odd to see the Suns turn around and decide, hey, you know what? This isn't working. We can't make the Jimmy Butler deal work. We can't get rid of Nurkic. We're going to go nuclear and blow it up. Trade Booker, trade Durant. I know these are things that I have advocated for as opposed to doing absolutely nothing. But I mean, you take a look at this now, and why would the Suns give up draft capital for less draft capital back if they had, some inkling of a feeling that they might turn around and just blow up the team?
And especially, why would they make a move for a position group that they need right now? Because if your goal was, all right, this isn't working out, we're going to blow it up, we're going to kick the can down the road, then there's no reason to make a move for a center specifically. You could make a move for anybody, and you would try to unload one of these bigger contracts, perhaps Durant. Obviously, Beal is probably still in the works, but that's the toughest one to do. We're going to be closer to the trade deadline by the time that starts to really get moving, and we hear anything new about that. Like, yeah, I agree with you. I think that not just the picks that they gave up, but also who they got back in return. They got back a center who can help them now. Like, that speaks to where they are. They think that they can still, whether Suns fans agree or not, and like there's a level of pessimism hanging over the team right now. You're a game below 500. It started off really hot. It looked like the big three was going to work out, and then it just kind of fell apart with all the injuries. They got back together. They haven't gotten back on track. And so like they think there's a little bit of pessimism there, but whether or not Suns fans believe it, inside of that building, they think they can still win a championship. And that's what this move indicates to me. Not that Nick Richards is some kind of championship center, but you said this earlier in the week. I don't think that offense is what they're looking for from their next big. They need somebody who runs the floor really well, is active around the basket, protects the rim, can help rebound in a team that's had multiple games now where they've just been out rebounded by 15, 20 plus. Like that stuff can't happen. And that's clearly a right now fix that they're making.
And again, I mean, you have to put all this into perspective. The Suns, as of today, if the playoffs started, they would not be in it. However, they are half a game out of the play-in. They are 2.5 games out from being in the 6th seed, where they're, not even having to go through the play-in to get into the playoffs. So, I mean, the season is not too far gone by any means. There is totally an opportunity to turn things around, to make all the right moves, to improve this team and put us back on a championship trajectory. So, to give up on things now, it doesn't make any sense. After they made this trade with the exchange of the draft picks, I think you can go ahead and just completely count out any scenario at this point of Devin Booker being traded or Kevin Durant being traded. It just really would not make any sense at all, no matter what happens on the court, for the Suns to just kind of renege on what they just did and give up and, blow the whole thing up. So to see all of that, I mean, that was really encouraging.
It is encouraging. And also you kind of have to know the owner of your team. Is that a Matt Ishbia thing to do since he's been here? There's no single action that this man has taken has suggested anything other than, I want to win a championship real bad. And you can argue that he's been too aggressive at times, and that he's, sunk them into a trajectory they can't quite get out of. But everything about Matt Ishbia, the way that he operates, the way that he talks to fans, the way that he's changed things in that arena to make things cheaper for people to go see the games, everything about the man suggests that a championship is the only thing he's gunning for. So when you add that to the other evidence, it seems like that's what the play is here.
So, there's still reason to hold out some hope for the Suns. We're going to get into the game that they're going to be playing tonight in Washington against the Wizards. But I want to go back to the actual draft picks that were exchanged in this deal, because there's also something else to keep in mind here. The 3 picks that we sent out to Charlotte, they're future second round picks. So it's going to be a bit harder to project, exactly how valuable those are going to be compared to, say, like a 2025 first or second rounder. So the 3 picks that we send out that are second rounders, it's a Suns 2031 second round pick. And then the other 2 are Denver Nuggets 2026 and 2031 second round picks. So, how the Suns are going to be come 2031 and how the Nuggets are going to be, jury's out on that. Who knows? Maybe they're good, maybe they're bad, but I would say it's really hard to say what the value of having a second rounder in that draft class is going to be right now. 2026, probably a little bit easier to gauge that at this point, but still a bit far off. But what do we know about the 2025 draft class?
It's real deep.
Really,
there's
really
a lot of great players coming in this draft. And I think it's going to be one of those drafts where you do see stars emerge from the second round of the draft. And we've seen it happen in the past before. But this is one of those drafts where it leans like that's the direction we're going in.
So now the Suns have this new asset that they could hold it for themselves if they're not able to pull off some of the trades that they're hoping to do. And maybe that's, a strong draft capital asset that we have going for us into a heavily loaded draft class coming up this summer. Or this is now a new, very appealing asset that can then be packaged with the 2031 first rounder that we have, in addition to Bradley Beal's contract, to then try and go out and make a Jimmy Butler trade work. So not only did we get Nick Richards, yes, we sent out more draft capital than what we got back, but the one that we got back, I mean, there's an argument to be made that that single second round pick could potentially be more valuable than the 3 combined that were sent out.
Yeah, if for no other reason than like you have a clearer idea of what that pick could be used on. The 31, you have no idea. You could have a bunch of those second round picks in 31, and then it just is, like the 2013 draft class where it's just everybody's terrible and there's no depth at all in the draft. So like that stuff happens too. The bird in hand kind of thing kind of makes that pick a little bit more valuable. Pickle D on the text line, by the way, says Suns going full Rams mode. F them picks. It does feel a little bit like that.
Hey, you know what? Once upon a time, Nikola Jokic was drafted in the second round during a Taco Bell commercial. So
yeah, and this is not the NBA, or sorry, this is not the NFL where you get to like the fifth and sixth round. And if you're still like a team that's trying to draft a quarterback there, well, good luck with that. You can find stars in the second round. It happens all the time, not just Jokic. I mean, Gilbert Arenas in the past, that was a second round pick.
Jalen Brunson.
Yes.
Second
round pick. Like you've seen this happen again and again in this league because Draymond Green, second rounder. Like there's a lot of second rounders in this league that have been able to be not just contributors, but stars. So that's still a valuable pick.
And then, I mean, going forward now, the Suns have 4 centers on the payroll, which is definitely ridiculous. And obviously one of those guys being Nurkic, who's just going to be essentially not even on the bench. He's just going to be existing until, we get him over to his next team. I mean, there's obviously more moves to come unless, we are down to something that's going to require Bradley Beal to have to consent to being traded. And he just, holds out and refuses to do that. But it doesn't seem like we're at that point. So knowing that we have these 4 centers, someone else is going to be on the move. Could it be Oso Ighodaro? Possibly, but it would really have to be some team out there that covets him in a trade and is looking for, rookie potential to get back. And I mean, that might be a dynamic that could be required of Phoenix in a trade to get Jimmy Butler, but I have to imagine any other team's going to want Ryan Dunn a lot more than Oso Ighodaro at this point. So then that really boils it down to just Plumlee and Nurkic. And, where could either one of those guys end up? I mean, it's really not that clear, I guess, at this point.
It's not that clear. I can see a team feeling better about Plumlee, just the way that he's played. I thought he's been pretty valiant this year, just stepping into a role he wasn't supposed to even have, and playing his butt off. Like, he's still a really good rotation player. Like, if he comes off the bench, he's fine. But the issue is Nurkic, I think. Like, he's the guy that's a little harder to move because I don't know who could possibly want him. I was reading a rumor that in the trade with the Hornets, the Suns tried to get Cody Martin back too, and they tried to package Nurkic with him, and the Hornets were like, "No, we're good. We're fine. We don't need your Nurkic. You can keep that guy. That's okay."
And it's funny because, I mean, there's a handful of teams that are kind of playing this game of musical chairs right now with these like bad contracts in the league. And some of these players that have these contracts are actually playing like a lot better than others. So for example, Zach LaVine is a guy that for years, people have basically said he has like one of the absolute worst contracts in basketball and he was never really playing up to it. And now this season, when he is being shopped around the absolute most, he is playing like some of the best basketball of his career. You even have a guy like Lonzo Ball. That's another one where, he's making, 8 figures a year, but pretty heavily injured for most of that. This is the first season where he's been able to be back. He's regularly playing. He's contributing. So you kind of do see a little bit of upside to some of these guys. And I did actually text you about this the other day, Keon, because DraftKings right now, they have a betting market on Lonzo Ball's next team. And the favorite is for him to not get traded and to still be with the Bulls. But the next favorite after that is the Phoenix Suns. And that kind of got me thinking like, wow, how in the world could that happen? And it's because you line up Nurkic's contract with Lonzo Ball's, and there's potentially a deal to be made there. It just boils down to whether or not the Bulls see any value in trying to bring on Nurkic. And that's where, I mean, hopefully they do. If I'm the Bulls, I don't really see it because you already have Nikola Vucevic. But I mean, look, if they're willing to take him on and we could get Lonzo Ball out of Yusuf Nurkic, I mean, that's worth rolling the dice on.
That
and just
absolutely
seeing-
is. Yeah. And he's a prime playmaker. He's somebody that doesn't need to have the ball to get other players involved and have them playing at a high level. So like he would fit exactly what it is that the Suns want to do. And of course, the addition by subtraction of having Yusuf Nurkic move on elsewhere. And like the Levine contract is like, it's not great. Unless he's going to produce like this, in which case it's perfectly fine. But like it's not the worst contract that I've seen. It's like 40 mil a year, which again, if he's playing like this or even slightly below this, that's still perfectly fine.
It's solid. So that's where it almost kind of throws a wrench into, everything that Chicago kind of thought they were going to be doing with him coming into the season, because they were not expecting him to play to this level. So, between now and the trade deadline, a lot of things to keep an eye on here. It's going to get really exciting. The Phoenix Suns are not done. There will be more moves to come. But the Suns are in action tonight. They are taking on the Washington Wizards. And we spoke a little bit about this game yesterday. And if you were not aware, the Wizards are, for better or worse, they really are the worst team in the NBA right now. If you want to go by record, they're the worst team. If you want to go by the eye test, that is something that'll pretty much tell you the same thing. And a lot of it is really intentional. And that's going back to the strength of this draft class that's coming in. There's going to be a handful of teams in the league that understand this is a generational class coming in. It makes a lot more sense for us to maybe not have the greatest season to position ourselves for that draft class and for the future. That's basically been the kind of season the Wizards have had so far. So if that's the kind of team that we're coming up against tonight, there is absolutely no excuse for losing to the Washington Wizards.
I watch enough Wizards games to know that that's true. That's just a stone cold fact. They're bad. They shouldn't just be beaten. They should be dusted. And if that's not the case, I'm a little concerned. I'm not going to lie to you. And there are plenty of reasons, and if you want to dig into it a little bit more on the other side, we can. But there are plenty of reasons why, like the Wizards can make this game probably more interesting than it should be. But the talent disparity is still greatly in favor of the Suns. The experience and the coaching disparity is also still greatly in favor of the Suns. The line's 11, and honestly, I don't even think that's big enough.
It shouldn't be big enough, but the Suns and the Wizards they're meeting at what is frankly a low point right now for the Suns. We all know that. So, we've watched the last 5, 6, 7 games where the Suns are coming in chronically, being priced on the line, well above the seemingly inferior talent that they're going up against. And then the Suns shock the world and they look mediocre against teams that they really should be, just beating the crap out of. So that's been kind of the theme of the last few weeks for the Suns. That's the theme of the downward spiral. That is why you need to actually stick around, because when we come back from break here, I'm going to get into a few different bets to take a look at for this Suns and Wizards game tonight. We're going to talk a little bit of college football. We have the national championship coming up next week. We're going to get into that. We also have GCU taking on Abilene Christian tonight. There's a bet to make for that. And then we've got a rematch of the 2 number 1 teams in the Eastern Conference and the Western Conference for the NBA. The Oklahoma City Thunder and the Cleveland Cavaliers face off again tonight. So there is going to be a betting pick for that game as well. Stick around. You're listening to Beat the Book here on 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
AZ Preps 365, your source for all the news, info, highlights, and more. Athlete news and interviews. Talk with coaches. Keep you up to date with the changes, moves, upcoming events, and more. AZ Preps 365, Arizona's ultimate prep sport show. If you miss a minute, you miss a lot. AZ Preps 365, Saturday mornings 8 till 10 on 1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic. And always on at 1580thefanatic.com.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
Everybody's got a podcast these days. Comedy, politics, true crime, you name it. But how many actually teach you anything useful? Harman Solar has an entertaining podcast that is vital if you've been thinking about looking into solar, but you don't know where to start. Ralph and Ben explore the intricacies of utilities, equipment, processes, and more. Their primary objective is to educate and empower you to make informed decisions on your solar journey. So increase your knowledge, not your bills. Go check it out right now. It's the Harman Solar Podcast at harmansolar.com.
All right, so there we were, cruising through the new open air zoo when I realized that the park was closing in like 15 minutes. That's when the afternoon took an exciting turn. Luckily, we were in my Nissan Rogue. With its powerful DC turbo engine, well, we had more than enough time to see all the animals. Whoa! And outrun a few!
Drive the Nissan Rogue. Now, Nissan offers 6 vehicles starting under $30,000 MSRP. Shop at your local Nissan store or at nissanusa.com. 2024 Nissan Altima, Kicks, Leaf, Rogue, Sentra, and Versa. All prices are manufacturer's suggested retail price. Manufacturer's suggested retail price excludes destination and handling charges, tax, title, license, and options. Dealer sets actual prices.
Now, you can be the guy that eventually gets bits and pieces of the latest news.
Or you can get the whole story when it breaks.
The NFL is always in season here.
That's how we do it.
Follow us on Facebook or Twitter. Or at 1580thefanatic.com.
The 5th letter on the text line says, I'm a second rounder. My women love it. I don't know what that means, 5th letter. You're going to have to explain that. What do you mean by that? Anyway. Are you an underdog? Like, I'm trying to understand what you're saying here.
Let's get back to Suns and Wizards here. This is a matchup that I think from a betting perspective, you need to actually kind of exercise some caution here. And I'm going to explain why. First and foremost, if you're looking at taking money line or spread on this one, that's probably the biggest area of like, be very cautious with what you're doing. And, if you have watched the last 5 Suns games, you would understand why. I mean, for us to come into this favored by 11.5 points, we understand why we are favored that much, but based on how this team has been playing lately, coupled with the fact that we're going to essentially be without like a true center in this game, it'll just be another round of Plumlee and Iguodaro doing their best. We're vulnerable, and there's no Bradley Beal in this game. With the kind of play that we're getting out of our front court, this could be a game where you see a guy like Alexander Sarr really pop off and have a above average performance because he's just going up against subpar talent. Even a guy like Jonas Valanciunas, where as far as like player props go for a guy like him, they're not available everywhere, which is why I didn't put out any recommended bets for Jonas Valanciunas. But one of the biggest areas of opportunity that I see would be to count on the opposing team getting rebounds, because that's where the Suns are suffering right now. So Alexander Sarr for 8 or more rebounds, his line is 7.5. That is one of the bets that is posted on the Beat the Book website. That is probably my absolute favorite bet for this game right now. He averages a little bit over 6 rebounds per game, but in his last 5 games, he does have 3 games of 8 or more rebounds. So, he does frequently get at least 8 or more. The last 2 games where he didn't get at least 8 or more rebounds, he was going up against the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Minnesota Timberwolves. Those are 2 of the best rebounding teams in the NBA. Now he's going up against the team that, at least at this present time, is the worst rebounding team in the league. So Alexander Sarr, great value on taking the over on his line for rebounds. Kyle Kuzma is another guy that can very much benefit from this dynamic of the Suns not having, very good rebounding right now from the personnel that's going to be playing. And then something else to consider here too, if you want to look to make a player prop bet on someone on the Suns, is actually going to be Ryan Dunn. Ryan Dunn, his last 3 games, he has scored at least 10 or more points. And keep in mind, he's been starting, but then he's also that first guy that gets subbed out when Bradley Beal comes in. So now no Bradley Beal in this game. That's going to lead to Ryan Dunn getting more playing time, which, if he's going to be in the game longer, he's going to take more shots. He's going to have a higher probability to score. So you take a look at where his line on points is for today. The last time I looked at this, it's at 9.5 right now. So you can get over even money if you take the over on Ryan Dunn for his points at 9.5. And again, he's already done this his last 3 games. And this is going to be a great opportunity. The Wizards are the worst defense in the NBA. So whenever you're picking the opposing team from the Wizards, guys on there to score, it's generally a good thing. Now, Kevin Durant, Devin Booker, these guys are, they're going to be the popular bets in this game for, who's going to score. And rightfully so. They generally are the high scorers on the Suns. But this is where this game gets tricky, because this could be that one game where the Suns actually do play to their potential. And if that's the case, well, guess what? We're probably up like 20 to 30 points at halftime. And then how much playing time do you see Devin Booker, Kevin Durant getting in the second half in a game where, we're up 20 to 30 points already at half? This is the same exact dynamic that unfortunately burned us yesterday. Anyone that bet on Giannis Antetokounmpo to get 30 or more, that was my favorite pick of the day. And the Magic were just so shorthanded that they could not compete with the Bucks long enough. And that game was basically over by the end of the third quarter, where Giannis had 26 points. He didn't have to come in at all in the fourth. He sat the entire fourth quarter. So I do have some concerns about that kind of scenario playing out for Devin Booker and Kevin Durant here, where each of them could get 28 apiece.
Yeah, and like you're also dealing with a very young Wizards team, guys that are rookies. Bub Carrington is a rookie. Alex Sarr is a rookie. I think Sarr is obviously going to hit that number rebounding tonight. I feel really good about that. But the fact of the matter is, like, they have talked about, those players have talked about how tired they are. They, as college players, never played this much basketball, and they never played this many minutes before. Bub Carrington was talking about that. This team has played 7 games in 12 days. Like, that's a lot of basketball already. And then when you combine the fact that, like, you go from a 30-game college basketball season to an 82-game NBA season, these guys just aren't used to it. Like, there is an absolute opportunity for multiple Suns to, quite frankly, take advantage of a Wizards team that's just young, and they don't have the legs for this right now. The rookie wall.
So there you have it. That is our analysis on the Suns and the Wizards game. If there's any bets that you really like that you've put together on that, and you want us to shout them out, text us 888-368-1580. We're always happy to shout out any parlays. Before this game comes around next week, I think it would be a good time for us to touch base on the college football national championship, because the line on this really hasn't moved a whole lot from where it opened up at. And I find that shocking. When the line came out on this game, Ohio State was the favorite at 8 points.
Mm-hmm.
And as of today, they're currently favored by 8.5.
Yeah. And on BetMGM, they're still 8.
They're still 8.
Genuinely has not moved this entire time on some apps.
And I don't know if that's just all these Ohio State people kind of holding off and waiting for the last minute. I looked at this and my initial reaction was, oh my God, that spread is not big enough.
Well, if you remember, the Ohio State fans moved the Texas game line right away. So I don't know if they're necessarily holding off so much as there is an equal amount of Notre Dame fans who believe and who are betting, and it's kind of even enough that the line's held in place. That would be my guess to this, because Notre Dame, for whether or not you doubt how good of a team that is, and I do have some serious doubts about it. I know, the path here, I kept talking about it, and they kept right on winning, and they kept right on proving me wrong. But I'm still saying that the path here is not as tough as Ohio State's, who had to beat the number 1 team in the playoff and the number 1 team in the nation to get to this point. And then run through a Texas team that had, one of the best defenses in college football. Like Ohio State turned it on when the college football playoff started. And I'm not saying Notre Dame didn't do that, but they did that against competition that wasn't as good.
Well, and to that point too, I mean, Ohio State had to defeat the other two teams that, based on, odds makers in the betting market, they were the two teams that had the next greatest chance to win the national championship. So yeah, Texas was number 5, but like in essence, really kind of, how were they stacked on the totem pole of teams like throughout this college football playoff? Texas was right there with Ohio State, and Oregon also right there. I mean, these are teams that are just a cut above Penn State, Georgia without its starting quarterback, Indiana, Boise State. I mean, you take a look at that whole other side of the bracket, and it just does not feel very impressive. And I know we have some Notre Dame faithful that listen to this show, and we absolutely appreciate you guys that do tune in. Not trying to upset anyone or ruffle anyone's feathers here, but just being as objective as I can possibly be about this matchup. Ohio State just feels like they are a cut above, and that's no knock on Notre Dame. Notre Dame has had a fabulous season. They've really overachieved, but at some point,
and look, they've got a top 10 defense and a great head coach in Marcus Freeman. But when you look at Ohio State, that Ohio State defense is the number 1 defense in the country. And they've done it against such good competition that you just can't doubt it. There's not a whole lot that you can argue with. And then in this college football playoff, if you were to rank some of the best quarterback performances over this run, you can't say that Will Howard hasn't been either near the best or the best. He's been as steady as it gets. And when they've needed him to have big performances, he did something I didn't think that he could do, because he didn't really show a whole lot of it all regular season, which is that he can kick this offense up another gear. I just genuinely don't know what the Notre Dame response is to that. And that's not a disrespect to Notre Dame so much as just a credit to what Ohio State has built this year. And the fact that I think that they know what this means for them. To have a year where you lose to Michigan, the only way to get that taste out of your mouth is natty. It's the only way. I can't think of any other way that gets done.
I completely agree. So going back to this line, I mean, look, if you want to bet on it at 8.5, I mean, that's safe. I'm picturing a double-digit win here, and I'm comfortable enough to take this all the way up to like 13.5. Give Ohio State 2 touchdowns. That's the way I see it, and that's the way that I'm going to be betting it. But very interesting that, like, my expectation was just that throughout the week, other people are going to see it kind of like me, and this line was just going to progressively move and move and move and move and move. And come Monday, if the spread's like 10.5, like, I'm not going to be surprised at all.
I'm not going to be surprised at all, but honestly, if it stays right where it is, I'm also not going to be surprised, because sometimes when it comes to betting and these line movements and the fan bases involved, and college football fans are crazier than most fans, the brand is strong for the Fighting Irish, and it's never been stronger. And like, I think that fan base, I don't think that they saw this as the kind of year that they were going to have this year, but now that they're here, they absolutely believe they're the why not us team of the college football playoff outside of maybe ASU.
So it's going to be really interesting to see kind of how that betting market moves between now and Monday. And on Monday's show, we will do another look back to it. We'll kind of give our final thoughts and analysis, and we'll see how that game goes. It's going to be a really fun game to watch. Now, later on 1580 The Fanatic, you will be able to catch the Grand Canyon University Lopes taking on the Abilene Christian Wildcats. That game is going to be on. It's after the Blender. Are you guys on at like 5:30?
Yeah, let me double check when this game starts, to be honest with you, because I don't want to be wrong about this.
Well, either way, we are your home for Grand Canyon basketball, and taking a look at the line on this one right now.
Yes, 6:45 is when that broadcast starts.
6:45. So there you have it. GCU currently a 13.5 point favorite, and I'm really looking forward to bucking the trend. I said this to Keon before we went on. There's been this really horrible thing going on lately where, when I post Grand Canyon University, like, as one of my picks, and like every single time, like I am betting on this. This is legitimately something that I see as a great betting opportunity. For whatever reason, like they just lose.
And to be clear, it's sometimes it's games where we all assume they're going to win. It's like we don't have to be a betting expert for some of these games to have assumed GCU was going to win some of those, and they still found a way to not win those games. And it got to the point where, Jeffrey was in here while we were getting ready before the show, and we mentioned that this is something that happens every time one of our picks goes up for GCU, and Jeffrey went, "Oh, so it's your fault. You're the reason. You're the jinx of the Lopes this season," which I sure hope that's not the case.
We are going to prove it wrong today. Abilene Christian has not won a game yet within the WAC. 0-2 in the conference. They are on a 4-game losing streak. And when you take a look at their schedule and who they've played so far this year, they have played some bigger programs. They have played some other Big 12 teams. They played against Texas A&M not that long ago at Texas A&M. They got blown out by 38 points. They played at Baylor. They lost to Baylor by 31 points. They played, other than that, Texas State is probably like the next biggest school that they played. So, the way that I'm kind of gauging this here, they have some wins against some smaller schools. They have experienced some bigger competition. They've played an SEC school. They've played a Big 12 school. But in their experiences against that bigger talent, they're not even holding a candle to those guys. They're not even competing. They're getting blown out by 30 or more points. GCU, when they play that level of talent, it's a competition. They're in it. They're not getting blown out by 30. They are challenging these other teams. GCU at Georgia, another SEC team. They played them to a 5-point loss, but they were in that one through and through. They had ASU on a neutral site. They had ASU on the ropes for the majority of that game. And that was pretty early on in the season where Tyon Grant Foster hadn't really been able to get any games under his belt. Like that was like the very first one that he just got thrown into.
Yeah,
so
that Louisiana Tech game against that Louisiana Tech team's like, all right, man, like that's a solid team. They've played solid competition and competitively, like you said, which makes me feel really good about this.
And then to back it up, they're also at home. And we know this team is just significantly better at home. They have one of the best home court advantages in all of college basketball. So GCU on a 13.5-point spread, they should be able to cover that. The bet that I posted to be a bit conservative, and on FanDuel, they do allow for alternate spreads in college basketball. They're kind of pre-selected alternate lines. So you just have to kind of find the one that is what I chose, which is GCU to cover a 10.5-point spread. That definitely feels like something that they should be able to cover. Before they lost to Utah Valley, they had defeated the 3 teams before them, each by 11 or more points. So that's a margin that they've been regularly covering. They've got the home court advantage. Look for GCU to have a easy win tonight against Abilene Christian at home.
So there you have that. Let's take one quick look at the text line, and then we'll get to the long shot parlay of the day. We got Baker's Cocky Hens on the text line, giving us the rundown on his bets yesterday. He said missed a 10-1 parlay thanks to Vooch getting 14 instead of 15. Man. Oh, good Lord. He also says live bet a couple of decent bets, grabbed Clippers fourth quarter money line plus 150, and then got Clips by 57.5 plus 280 to hit by the hook, and then UNLV by 2.5 hit by the hook as well. So it's not bad actually. You turned it around there for yourself, and then Hefty Lefty with one text that's funny and one text that's not funny. The text that's not funny says Keon loves Kyle Kuzma. If I could drive that man to the airport right now, I'm not even kidding. I do not like Kyle Kuzma. I want him off the team. I'm done with Kyle Kuzma. He's a deeply unserious person and a deeply unserious basketball player. The funnier text he says is, I'm more of a Bush guy, but a natty gets the job done. When the natty comes with a big old trophy, I think it more than gets the job done. T-Licious says, I think I found a new strategy for some NBA bets. Don't pick the Suns. Yeah, that's a solid strategy. I think
they're on probation for a reason, man.
Yeah, we have on this show, we have them on probation. Even when we kind of believe in them, we still don't really believe in them. Like, I'm tempted to bet them tonight just because I know how bad the Wizards are. Like, it's not theoretical for me. I watched this team play at least 20 games this season. No one should do that. No one should have to do that. But it's been a struggle. All right, the text line is absolutely freezing up on me. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to come back. I'll get this thing sorted, and then we're going to do a little bit of big game hunting as we always do, looking for the long shot parlay of the day. Dylan's going to break that down for us next on Beat the Book on 1580 The Fanatic.
1580 and 99.3 The Fanatic.
Live and local.
Drivers who switch and save with Progressive could save hundreds. With that kind of money, you could go big time. The next time you're out to dinner with friends, you can order the shrimp cocktail for the table. And maybe you'll realize it only comes with 4 shrimp after you've already given away 3, but that one shrimp will be so good. And if you switch and save hundreds, you could get shrimp all the time. Switch to Progressive and you could save big time. For shrimp. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and affiliates, not available in all states. Potential savings will vary.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
My name is Mary Grace. There are a few misconceptions about Alzheimer's. It's not just memory loss. It's the loss of mobility, the risk of falling.
For more information, contact the Alzheimer's Association at alz.org. Sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association.
Sports bettors, we've all been there. You have a live bet lined up, you check the odds one more time, place the bet only to see the bet delayed by the spinny wheel, line move, and your bet rejected. My name's Alex Kane, and I'm the founder and CEO of Sporttrade, Arizona's newest sports betting app. At the core of the Sporttrade offering is our probability-based odds. In other words, the Cardinals may be offered at 55% odds to win, a lot simpler than minus 125. Place your bet at 55% odds, and as your win probability changes, so does the value of your bet, giving you the ability to cash out with total control. And the best part, no spinning wheels. Live bets on Sporttrade are instantly accepted. Download Sporttrade on your iPhone today and use code 1580 to earn 10% cash back on every bet in your first week. Terms apply.
Sporttrade is regulated by the Arizona Department of Gaming. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-NEXT-STEP.
My name is Mary Grace. There are a few misconceptions about Alzheimer's. It's not just memory loss. It's the loss of mobility, the risk of falling.
For more information, contact the Alzheimer's Association at alz.org. Sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association.
This is Brad Musburger. Don't miss Betting Across America, Saturdays at 11 a.m. right here on Arizona Sports Betting Station, 1580 and 99.3. The Fanatic.
So on the text line, let's see if we can catch everybody back up because we had a bunch of them roll in during the break there. Ringless Joe says, are you guys doing best bets for divisional round weekend? Yes, tomorrow. Closer to the divisional round. He also says, what do you think of the Commanders versus Lions line? Opened at 8 and has moved to 10.5, and now it's back to 9.5 or back to 8.5. What's the play here? I think that's a really big line for a Washington offense that's been rolling. I think the Lions win the game, but boy.
Well, and we did kind of go through each game earlier this week and give some like initial thoughts, and we're going to get into
on that opening line. Yeah,
right. We'll get into it deeper tomorrow too. But the last time I looked at this line for Commanders and Lions, it was plus 9.5, and I was definitely leaning towards Commanders at plus 9.5. I mean, if it's going to be over a touchdown worth of space here, I'm probably still leaning towards the Commanders because I really do think this game is going to come down to like the final score, whether that's, someone getting a touchdown at the very end or a field goal. So I'd probably lean towards Commanders still with where the line is.
But we'll get more in depth on it tomorrow. The fifth letter says, definitely consider myself a Hall of Fame second rounder. Well, congratulations, sir. They don't do gold jackets in the NBA. I don't know exactly what the standard is there, but I hope you enjoy your induction ceremony. T-Licious shows on the text line here. Here's my bet as soon as I deposited some money. He had SGA over 32.5, Donovan Mitchell over 21.5, Jared Allen over 10.5. The SGA and Donovan Mitchell were points. The 10.5, Jared Allen is rebounds. The Darius Garland over 6.5 assists. And then Isaiah Joe over 2.5 3-pointers made. So what do you think about that?
I like it, but I will say there is potential within that Thunder and Cavs game where the Thunder might force the Cavs to have to go small. And that's just because the Thunder are going to be without Isaiah Hartenstein tonight. They still don't have Chet Holmgren, so they're going to have Jalen Williams playing the 5. So it's still something where the Cavs big men are so mobile. And at least in the case of Evan Mobley, he has outside game. Like they can still do things to keep themselves on the court. But I do have some concerns that, the Thunder are going to try and combat the size difference against the Cavaliers by pushing the pace, going small and kind of leaning into small ball basketball. So that would be my only kind of caveat on, depending on like the Jared Allen rebounds part. But otherwise, no, I totally like all the other lines on that.
All right. And the last text that we have here, Pickle D, to clean it all up, says if Ohio State wants to taste a natty, they better make a beer run because Notre Dame is going to smack them in the mouth and take it on home. Pickle D's a Georgia fan, which is why I did not expect that from you. But all right. Hey, man, if your team loses to another team, you might as well root for them, make it worth something.
Kind of validate the loss a little bit more.
Yeah.
So I guess there's something in it for him there.
Especially in a game where Georgia just made so many mistakes that you just go, man, that could be us standing there.
Hey, well, ASU fans, we know exactly how that feels.
There's a similar feeling there. And then of course, like Texas turned around and made me feel the same thing again. Cause like the Quinn Ewers fumble, the fact that he holds on to that or he gets the ball out, you have a different feeling. Sometimes it's just like that, man. It's just like that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the long shot parlay of the day.
So this long shot parlay is 4 legs. And when I initially put it together this morning, it was paying very close to 110 to 1 on FanDuel. I know the pricing on this has moved down since, but this is the way that it's set up. We need Scoot Henderson on the Portland Trailblazers to get 20 or more points against the Clippers. We need Alexander Sarr on the Washington Wizards to get 10 or more rebounds against the Phoenix Suns. And then we have Cade Cunningham needing 10 or more assists. He's taking on the Indiana Pacers tonight at home. And then we have Jalen Green on the Houston Rockets. He needs to get 30 or more points against the Sacramento Kings. So starting at the top, Scoot Henderson, 20 or more points. He's actually reached this in 2 out of his last 3 games. And the key here is just that Portland is dealing with a number of injuries. They're down a couple of starters right now, missing Jeremy Grant as well as Denny Avdia. And then Donovan Clingan and Robert Williams are both also going to be out of this game. So since they've been down a couple of starters, Scoot's been getting some actual starting minutes. And with the increased playing time, his shooting output is increasing. And you also have to keep in mind, Scoot was the number 2 pick in the draft last year. And he was drafted out of the G League, very young, raw prospect. The Blazers are kind of like the Wizards. There's no intention to do that well this season. They're building for the future. They're looking to get Scoot these kinds of opportunities to get more repetitions and to get more comfortable being a starter, because that's ultimately the role that they have in mind for him. So this is a great spot to look to get him to score 20 or more points. He's playing at home. Clippers may very well blow out the Trailblazers, but that doesn't necessarily mean Scoot is not playing in garbage time because, again, they're just trying to build him up. They're looking to get him reps. So look for Scoot to get 20 or more. Alexander Sarr, we talked about this one before. The Suns are basically just without a imposing center right now. They're not contesting for rebounds. Nick Richards isn't going to be integrated into the lineup yet. He's expected to join the team on Saturday. And if all of that isn't good enough for you, if you go over the last 5 Suns games, someone on the opposing team, every single game has had a double-digit rebound game. In a handful of those games, more than one person had a double-digit rebound game.
Yeah. And last game, the person who had a double-digit rebound game had a 20 rebound game.
So Alexander Sarr, who is the current betting favorite for Rookie of the Year, he's been playing very well lately. He's had a couple of games over his last 5 of double-digit rebounds. It's something he's been doing. It's something he's in a great position to do tonight. Cade Cunningham, 10 or more assists. Cade is 3rd in the NBA in assists right now. He averages about 9.5 per game. In 2 games against the Pacers this season, he had 8 assists and 11 assists. So it's something that he's done before. The Pacers are going to be without Benedict Mathurin today. Tyrese Halliburton and Aaron Nesmith are both questionable. So he could be going up against a shorthanded Pacers team that isn't going to be playing as well of defense as they normally would. Should be an easier scenario for Cade to get those assists. They're playing at home. He'll be looking to get his teammates involved with the Pacers being so shorthanded. And then the final leg, Jalen Green, 30 or more points. Jalen Green is like very quietly one of the hottest players in the NBA right now. He has scored 27 or more points in his last 6 straight games. He scored 30 or more points in his last 2 games while shooting 60% or better from the 3-point line. Wow. He's also averaging over 30 points per game in the month of January so far. And in his last game against the Kings, he scored 28 points. Keep in mind the Kings rank in the bottom half of the NBA as a team defensively. With the way that Jalen Green is shooting the ball right now, it's an excellent bet to take him for 30 or more.
Got to feel really good about that one tonight. I'm just saying, taking one last look at the text line to clear some things up. Baker's Cocky Hens is saying, I am one of 6 tied in the VZin college contest. Winner gets $5K. Buckeyes by 17. So Baker's Cocky Hens has been about as red hot picking in college football as it's possible to be right now. Best of luck to you, sir. Hope you get the 5K. Pickle D says, my dad and uncle are Notre Dame fans and Ohio State is just gross. Only way I'd pull for them is if they played Florida, which, okay, relatable. And then Ringless Joe had a whole breakdown about the Commanders' SRS grade versus the Lions' SRS grade. They're separated by about 10, and each separation point is about what it would actually be worth in a score in a game. I don't know if you could value it like that, but we'll see.
I'm Taylor Bishotti with NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network. Lions running back David Montgomery was a full participant in practice this week for the first time since suffering a knee injury week 15. Montgomery is expected to be back in the lineup for their divisional round matchup against the Commanders on Saturday. The Cowboys head coaching search is underway. Former Jets head coach Robert Saleh is expected to interview with Jerry Jones and company for the vacancy left behind by Mike McCarthy, according to NFL Network insider Ian Rappaport. Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph completed his interview with the Jets for their head coaching vacancy, while Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith did the same with the Bears for their head position. The NFL announcing today that the Colts will play in the first ever regular season game in Berlin next year as part of the 2025 International Games. This has been NFL Network Now on the Westwood One Radio Network.
Welcome to Staples.
I am so pumped. My business is going to kill it this year.
Awesome. How can I help?
First, a new